Your self-concept is the blueprint for your life. Whatever you know to be true about yourself, as well as your self-image, which is how you view yourself on a daily basis, is essentially what shapes the things that you experience. Because as within, so without. Whatever you know to be true about yourself, however you see yourself, is what makes up your identity. And whatever identity that you are embodying is what shapes your behavior, how you react to things in your life, or how you respond to things in your life. So if you feel like life is always throwing you curveballs, if you feel like it's hard to break out of unwanted cycles, it's hard to break bad habits, it's hard to see significant changes in your life, or for you to call in certain desires that you want in your life, really turn inward and ask yourself what you know to be true about the things you are trying to change. For example, the majority of my life, I was an overthinker. I struggled with anxiety. I struggled with depression, amongst other things. And I always felt trapped in my own life and in my own body. I felt like life was always throwing me curveballs. I felt like life was unfair. I felt like life was so difficult until I finally realized that everything that I was experiencing was how I saw myself. Nothing in life was going to change until I changed the way that I viewed myself. And see, before that, I would try to change everything in my life. I would try to force changes in my life. I would try to put myself on new routines. I would try to put myself on a different schedule. I would try all of these different external things to make the changes within myself. And even though those things kind of helped at times, I found that I would always revert back to my old ways. So that's when I finally realized this has nothing to do with anything outside of me. It has everything to do with what is going on internally. So the way that I was able to shift my identity in order to experience something different in my life, I had to shift everything that I knew to be true about myself that was essentially blocking me and holding me back. What I mean by that is the majority of my life, I had the most ridiculous internal dialogue. I would constantly talk down about myself. I would constantly make self-deprecating jokes. I would constantly just view myself as someone who wasn't worthy or deserving of love, of success, of money, of pretty much anything. I felt like, and this sounds really sad, but I felt worthless. So in order to shift all of those unwanted or negative things that I kept telling myself, or the things that I knew to be true about myself, I had to tell myself a different story, or essentially write myself a different story. In your life, you are always the main character. But not only are you the main character, you're the scriptwriter, you're the producer, you're the director, you're the audience, you are everything wrapped up into one. So it's almost like if you were to grab a blank book off of a shelf, open it up, and write your own story. Write the story that you actually want for yourself. Because a lot of the beliefs that we hold, especially limiting beliefs that we hold within ourselves, a lot of those derived from when we were a child, from when we experienced certain things, or when we were conditioned to believe certain things, or we placed labels upon ourselves, or other people placed labels upon us. All of that we experienced as children is what shaped us into who we are today. So when it comes to the limiting beliefs or unwanted stories that we've told ourselves, those are the things that you need to rewrite. Open up a blank book and tell yourself a different story, or write yourself a different story. And I know that almost seems like, okay, it really can't be that simple, but it really is. Not only did I rewrite myself a new story, but every single day I was consciously aware of what I was thinking about and what I was telling myself all throughout the day. This is where the observer part of you observes what you're thinking. So throughout the day, if I caught myself having thoughts of, oh no, I'm not good enough for this. Oh no, what if I can't do that? Oh no, what if this bad thing happens? All of those negative things, I had to catch those. The moment that I was thinking them, I was like, no. I would immediately interrupt the thought and be like, that is not who I am anymore. And I would remind myself that for my life, I do not want to spend all of my life focusing on the things that I don't want, focusing on negative self-talk, self-deprecation, that is not something that I wanted for my life. So I really put my foot down and I was like, we are not doing this anymore. And once I did, my brain started to catch up with that. My brain started to process that new story that I was telling myself. It was starting to understand that, okay, we are doing something different now. And it felt very uncomfortable because just like everything in life, change is uncomfortable. But that's the thing, is that when you get comfortable with being uncomfortable, you start to become unstoppable. Because no matter how much fear you feel, no matter how much doubt you feel, no matter how much anxiety you feel, you're still going to go and do that thing that you want to do or accomplish the dreams that you want to accomplish regardless. Because it's not so much about the feelings. It's not so much that you feel anxious or that you overthink or that you feel scared or that you doubt. It's that there's a difference between letting all of those things run your life and you being able to say, you know what? I understand that I'm feeling scared or I understand that I'm feeling anxious, but that's not who I am and that is not what gets to run the show in my life. There's a difference between those two things. And once you come to that realization, like I mentioned, everything else starts to feel a lot easier as you're shifting from one identity that you don't want into an identity that actually matches what you want to experience in your life. So let me know in the comments one shift you want to make in order to start seeing changes in your life. I love you so much. I will see you next time.